Hello and welcome to the world's smallest distillery. I'm Rachel Hicks. I'm one of the owners and co-founders of skywavegin.com.
And I'm Andy Parsons, the master distiller and the other co-founder of Skywave Gin.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the virtual Gin Festival. We're joined by 3 other fantastic distilleries and we are so happy to be hosting you this evening. We've got loads of fun for the next half an hour and I know you want to drink your gin, but if you could just hold off for one moment, we're going to tell you what we're doing and then we're going to launch into the gin drinking. So this evening, we're going to do a virtual tasting with our lovely gin, which you've got there at home. By the way, you're all looking very dressed up. You look very fine. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about Skywave and how we came into being. Are you checking? They're looking fine. And then we've got a quiz for you. So that's why we wanted your paper and pen that we mentioned on Facebook. We're going to take you out into the Oxfordshire sunshine and mix a cocktail up for you before giving you the quiz answers and sending you on your way to the next distillery. So without further ado, I'd like to pass you over now to Andy, who's going to do the virtual gin tasting with you.
So this is what you've all been waiting for, and we're sorry we kept you waiting for a few extra moments, but thank you, those of you that saw our post earlier on, for not drinking the gin early, because we want to take you through a little bit about it and tell you a little bit about our gin. So this is, and you have a slightly different bottle, but the same label, Skywave London Dry Gin, which we're really proud to announce was voted only last month the world's best contemporary London dry gin. We're so excited about that. We've only been going for 18 months. Anyway, on to the tasting. Enough talking. First thing I'd like you to do is open the bottle. So unscrew the top, pull the cork out, whatever form you've got, and just nose it. Just have a think about what you're getting there. You should be getting juniper, but there's also a hint of citrus and lots of other more interesting, more mysterious botanicals going on in there. But what you're not getting is that harsh alcohol smell that you sometimes get with, I don't know, mass-produced, non-craft gins. So just enjoy that smell for a little longer. And now we're going to taste it. Now we're going to try and taste it. Well, not try. We're going to taste it neat. Now, you may not be used to drinking gin neat, but all the competitions all around the world will judge a gin drunk neat, not with tonic. So that's why we're going to introduce you to, if you've not done it before, trying gin neat. So just take a little bit, not too much because that's all you've got, a little bit, pour it into the glass, swirl it around a bit, nose it again because the nose is about as much about smell as in your mouth, and then just sip it. And just think about what you're getting. Again, incredible smoothness. What you're not getting is that harsh alcohol burn in the back of your throat. It's really smooth. You're getting the juniper hit. You're getting citrus coming through. You're getting a smoothness throughout the middle, and then that spice at the end, a hint of spice at the end, all from our 13 botanicals that we put into our fabulous London Dry Gin. Have another sip. And swirl it around. Okay. But let's make a gin and tonic with it, shall we? So take your bottle, and I've noticed on the post that a lot of you have been making that some of you have ordered 2 kits, so some of you have got 2 bottles. So take your bottle and either split it between 2 glasses, or indeed if it's all yours, pour it all into one glass.
Enjoy it if you've got a double.
Don't forget to add plenty of ice.
While Andy's doing that, I'm just going to say hello to Julia Backhouse, Margaret Boulder, and Dajit Bogle. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. This is the first time we've done a Facebook Live, so I hope we're doing okay. We'll try and answer as many of your questions as we can see.
Okay, so next you need to be adding the tonic. Now, we recommend with Skywave that you use a premium neutral tonic. And I know that you've got some fabulous tonics in your kit for tonight. Ideally, it would be a tonic that isn't got any extra flavour because you want to taste the gin, not the flavour of the tonic. And the other important thing is don't over tonic. A lot of places, especially bars, just top up your gin with lots of tonic, and all you're drinking is tonic. We recommend no more than 2 to 1, maybe 2.5 at the most, if you like your tonics. So I'm going to put a little bit of tonic in here, not too much. And it doesn't create a huge drink, but it does create a fabulously flavoursome drink. And then finally, the last thing you must remember is garnish. And then you need to stir. That helps to bring the garnish out. It helps to make sure the tonic and the gin is fully mixed.
I'm just a bit too keen to get mine.
Desperate to drink it. And there we are.
Cheers.
You may not have kept up with us, but we're going to start without you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Enjoy your Skywave gin and tonic.
Now, many people ask us how we started, and the way we started was actually a bit of a surprise to us. I bought Andy a birthday present for his special birthday. Yes, he was 40.
I wish.
And it was gin school. So we went off to gin school being passionate gin lovers. We had a fabulous time there, and we created a recipe, well, mostly Andy, to be honest. And we loved it. We were really surprised at how great it was, and we just thought, oh, maybe that's because we made it. But then the master distiller of the course came over and he tasted it and he said, no, that's really good. And we went, wow. And then all of the rest of the course came over and tried it and they said, no, that's really good. And we went home sort of floating on air. Before we'd even arrived home, Andy had been on his phone ordering a traditional copper alembic still from Portugal, which arrived almost at the same time as we did. And that was it. We got the bug. We started tweaking that recipe.
After we got our licenses.
After we had got all of our licenses, and there's a lot to get. 40 iterations later, 6 months down the line, an awful lot of happy friends who'd had to unfortunately help us try it, and we launched. And it literally has just taken off. And as you know, from what you can see behind us on the wall, we've won numerous awards and we've only been going for 18 months. So thank you for everybody who supported us and enjoyed drinking this incredible gin. Now, people often ask me when we go to festivals how our gin is so smooth, and you've just tasted it and you can taste how smooth it is when it's neat. So I'm going to get Andy to explain a bit about how we make our gin and how it does turn out so smoothly.
Okay, so to explain a little bit about how we achieve that, let me introduce you to Tessie. Tessie is our still, and this is actually our production still. It's tiny, isn't it? And I'll go on to explain a bit more about what that means to the gin in a moment. But I just want to tell you the provenance. Tessie is named after our beloved Springer Spaniel, who we lost about 4 years ago now. And this is just a way of keeping Tessie's memory alive. So our still is called Tessie. It's tiny. It's only a 50-litre still. So we can control absolutely precisely the quantity of botanicals that go in, the wash that goes in there. We heat it gently, we distill incredibly gently, and we control everything by hand and by taste. The other important thing to note about our still is the column. That's it. You'll see a lot of gin distilleries that have a column which is incredibly high, lots of sight glasses, lots of copper reflux plates in there, and the gin goes around and around and around. Very, very refined product. But we believe it strips some of the flavour away, which is why our reflux all happens in there. When it flows out into the condenser, and everything that comes off the still we collect at the other end there. So what makes our gin really smooth? Really slow, gentle distillation, and only having a very short reflux column. Fabulous gin, fabulously smooth, fabulous mouthfeel.
Now, our gin is a London dry, and that is the method by which we make it. But a lot of people don't really understand what that means, and we often need to explain it to them. And to be honest, I didn't know what it meant until 18 months ago when we started this. So, Andy, can you just explain to us all what it means to be a London dry gin?
Yes, we do often get asked this question because, of course, we're based in Oxfordshire. So why would it be a London drip gin and not an Oxfordshire gin? So London dry is actually a method of production, and it's actually a European standard as well. What it means is that everything that goes into your gin must go into the still or a gin basket above. So everything has to be in this part of the apparatus. All the wash, all the neutral grain alcohol that you start with, all of the botanicals must go in here, and then nothing can be added afterwards except the water that you use to cut it down to the alcohol content that you serve it in your bottles. There are many gins out there, high street gins. If you look really carefully at the label, it will not say London Dry Gin. And that's because they add flavourings or something afterwards to give it the flavour profile that you may well know and love. But it's not a London Dry Gin. And it is, in many circles, believed that London Dry is the pinnacle of craft distilling. Why is that? Because you can do nothing afterwards. Everything that goes in there is the art and the craft. You can't tweak it afterwards. You can't add a bit of something if it wasn't quite right. You can't add a bit of something else if it wasn't quite right. It's not like a recipe that you throw in a bit more salt or a bit more spice. You can't do it the London Dry. You can't add anything afterwards. It's got to be what you put in here, and that's the art and the craft of a London Dry.
Now, while we're talking about terms, a lot of people also say to us, I love a navy strength, and we do one. But what does that term mean? Andy, where does navy strength come from?
A bit of an old historical tale on the navy strength. So it is said that there were some quartermasters, those that were in charge of the supplies and the stores and the food in the Navy, were on the make. They were a little bit unscrupulous, and what they would do is filter off a bit of the gin and water it down. So the sailors got a lot less strength in their gin because the quartermasters were on the make, trying to sell a bit of it on the side. So they realised that if alcohol, any alcohol, but gin in particular, is at 57%, and you pour it on gunpowder and you light it, it will still burn. But if it's been watered down, it won't. So if you're not sure whether your quartermaster's on the take, pour a little bit on gunpowder, light it, and if it doesn't light, have him arrested.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, a lot of people ask me, what makes a craft gin a craft gin? And there are many reasons, but I'll try and give you a few little insights into it. One of them is that we are a craft gin, and it comes down to the fact that we make it. It's made by hand by us. So you've now met Andy and me, so you know that as the distillers, we have made every drop that has come out of here, and every drop you are drinking, we've made by hand ourselves. We haven't contracted it out to somebody else to make and just sent them the recipe. We haven't put it through a factory. We've made it by hand with love. We make it in small batches, 120 bottles at a time. So every batch is very, 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 very slightly different, which again is all part of the authenticity of a craft gin. We don't use mechanisms. We don't use any kind of factory equipment. We cut the tails and the heads by hand and by taste. So we don't use machines to make those decisions on when our gin is ready. And ultimately, it comes down to the provenance of some of the ingredients as well. We've got 13 botanicals in our gin, and one of them is blackberries. You can't taste it in the London Dry, but it's one of our botanicals. And we forage those from the Oxfordshire hedgerows. So there's a bit of Oxfordshire in this gin. But we love Oxfordshire so much, we didn't stop there. When we cut our gin, when we cut the distillate down to be 42% gin, we didn't need to cut it with water, and we cut it with Blenheim Palace natural mineral water, which is just 15 minutes down the road, and we have the permission of the Duke of Marlborough to use that. So there's a lot of Oxfordshire in our gin, and that's part of the provenance and the authenticity of what makes a craft gin.
But there's one more thing that I think is important for craft gin, and that's the name. So what's in our name?
Our name. Okay, so Skyway. People say, "Oh, what does that mean?" And it's true, you know, a lot of gins are called after the place or after a person. So we thought, should we be Parsons Gin? That's our married name. Should we be Bucknell Gin because we're from the village of Bucknell in North Oxfordshire? But none of that quite rang our bell. So we decided to go for Skywave because it seemed quite expansive, quite exciting, quite interesting. And we chose Skywave to reflect the adventures that we've had and that we hope you'll have as a result of drinking our gin and just being the kind of people you are who like to choose our gin to drink. And the adventures we've had across the waves and through the skies have been as part of our lives. I was a BBC reporter, so I have wing walked for the news. I've driven a Land Rover across the Sahara because it seemed like a good idea at the time. Andy was in the army, an officer in the army, and you were a mountaineering leader, weren't you?
Instructor, yeah.
Instructor. So he led people up mountains. And we want you to take away that kind of inspiration from the name. But here's the science bit. Skywave is actually a proper word. It means something. It actually is a type of radio wave. My background is in radio journalism at the BBC, and Andy was part of the Royal Signals. And of course, if you don't know, they are a communications part of the army and work a lot with radio. So the radio signal is relevant to us as well. So there's the background to our story. Now, we're in strange times. By the way, just hello to everybody who's joining us. You keep joining us, and I hope if you missed the beginning, you can catch up afterwards because it'll all be on the website.
Who's joining us? Kelly Wilkinson. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Kelly Pauling. Julie Backhouse and Leslie Dodds. Glynis Reiki and Amanda Riley.
Wow,
hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody. In these strange times, when we're doing this because of COVID-19, a lot of people ask us, what are we doing for COVID-19? Andy, we've been asked about hand sanitizers, haven't we?
So yes, we have, and we are primed and ready to produce hand sanitizer as soon as it's needed. So the thing about distilleries is they have alcohol. Clearly they have alcohol and they have high strength alcohol. So you would have thought that they're already primed to make hand sanitizer, and you will have read in the papers that many distilleries are doing that. So we've had inquiries from the NHS in the local area, local hospitals, and the private sector, and we are ready to do it. We will be doing it at cost or indeed free of charge for those who absolutely need it. And the reason we haven't done it yet is because, of course, if we're going to do it at cost, we have to invest in that. So we're just waiting for the first orders to come in. And we expect those possibly to come in next week. And we'll be switching part of our production to hand sanitizer.
Now, we promised you a quiz, and that is exactly what we're going to do. 3 questions now, bit of a cocktail beforehand. And
I
then,
want to mention our eco-credentials.
Well, we'll maybe do that later,
Okay.
because I want to make sure that we end on time. We don't want
Okay.
Manchester Distillery saying, "Oi, finish up Skywave 2." So let's get this quiz underway. There are 3 questions. The first question is, what is the origin of the phrase Dutch courage, and what is its link to gin? I'll let you think about that and write it down. Andy, do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so the second question. The word, or the name cocktail, where does the name and the word cocktail come from? We'll give you a multiple choice on this one because it's potentially quite tricky. Is it A, an after-dinner drink? Is it B, a rather nasty name for one of our earlier Prime Ministers, William Pitt the Younger? Or C, a name for a non-thoroughbred horse?
Okay. And the third question is, why were cocktails invented? And again, a multiple choice. Was it A, to get you to drink more alcohol because you are going to have more alcohol in your glass each time you have a cocktail? Was it to hide the taste of poor alcohol? Or was it indeed to get more variety in the pubs and get more people into public houses drinking alcohol in the first place? We're going to leave you with that. And we're going to head out into the Oxfordshire sunshine. I'm going to take this with me, show you our stock room as we head out into the sunshine. Here we go, past the awards. So this is the less glamorous side of any kind of gin production. So you've got all the packaging here. There's the Merchant's Heart. We're partners with Merchant's Heart. There they are. And here's our boxes, all of our bottles on pallets and our stock. And heading, oh, look, there we go. There's our hydraulic press that we use for pressing our raspberry and rhubarb, which is a lovely full-strength dry gin that we do, and also our spiced apple gin. And waiting for us, as if by magic, it's like Mr. Ben, this, isn't it? Is Andy to make a beautiful cocktail for us. What are you going to make today, Andy?
So, tonight we're going to make a twist on the French 75. So, the twist is that we're not going to use a normal gin, but we're going to use Skywave Raspberry and Rhubarb gin. It's one of our fruit gins. So you'll need 35 millilitres of gin. Any gin will do. It's a fabulous cocktail with any gin. 20 millilitres of lemon juice. And I pressed a lemon earlier on. It's in here.
Did it mind?
It didn't. It squeaked a bit, but it didn't really mind. And 10 millilitres of sugar syrup. And this is a commercial sugar syrup. So here's what you need to do. Put plenty of ice in a cocktail shaker. I forgot to say, by the way, that you also need some kind of fizz, whether it's Prosecco or gin, Prosecco or champagne or cava, just some kind of fizz. So, plenty of ice in your cocktail shaker. Then you need 35 mils of whatever your gin you choose. And we're being, as I said, unusual using the raspberry and rhubarb. So this is a 50 ml jigger, so I'm not going to fill it quite to the top. That should do.
And this is a very dry gin, isn't it, this raspberry and rhubarb?
It is, yes. Unlike a lot of fruit gins, it's not particularly sweet. That's why it works well with this recipe, because we're going to add sugar syrup. So the worst thing you could do is to over-sweeten it. So 20 mils of lemon, so I'm going to use the other end of the jigger. That's the 25 ml end of the jigger. Not quite full. And then 10 millilitres of the sugar syrup, so just less than half.
And you can get that sugar syrup in the supermarkets, can't you?
Well, you could.
That's true.
In the current climate, it might be a little bit harder, but you should be able to get it. Or you might use one of your 80 slots on your home delivery if you're not careful. And then you give it a good shake. So 10 to 15 seconds is all you need. Talk amongst yourselves whilst I'm doing this.
Well, I'm just going to reply to Suzanne, who says, how did we come up with the name? And Suzanne, we did talk about that a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, maybe you hadn't joined us, but it was
We'll drop you a line after, Suzanne,
yeah,
just to clarify if you don't manage to rewind the video. So, next thing you do is you take a champagne flute and you strain the cocktail into it. Now, we're very lucky in this cocktail mixer has actually got a strainer in the top. If it hasn't strained through a normal strainer, pour that in there. Lovely pink colour.
You'll notice now the cocktail's ready, I can come back into shot and get quite close to it.
It's not quite ready.
With the hope that I might actually be able to have some of it.
Because we do need to add the fizz. And so you top up with your fizz of choice. And tonight we're using Prosecco.
Oh, wow, that looks amazing. I know what we'll be doing in about 5 minutes' time. Sitting down with Manchester Distillery and drinking Skywave cocktails.
And there we are.
Isn't that beautiful? It's like a pink panther.
French 75, and I'm going to try it.
Now, we promised you the answers to the quiz, and we've only got a few more minutes left. So I hope you've jotted down a few thoughts. The first question was, what's the origin of the phrase Dutch courage, and what's its link to gin? Andy.
So, Dutch courage was a phrase used for soldiers going into battle that had had a nip. And they perhaps had more than a nip, perhaps had quite a skinful, gave them courage to fight in battle. Why is it Dutch courage? Because the British first saw this with the Dutch soldiers of William of Orange. And they found that they were half cut going into battle, and they wondered why. And it turns out that they were drinking Geneva, which is a predecessor of gin, hence the link between the phrase Dutch courage and gin.
Fantastic. Now, the next question was, I'm trying to remember what it was. How did we come up? Where did the origins of the word cocktail come from? That's right.
Ah, yes. Bear with me here. This is a bit convoluted. The answer is actually it was a nasty name for the Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger. So, the story goes that racehorses that were not thoroughbreds were called cocktails because they'd had to have their tails docked to show that they weren't thoroughbreds. Now, a cocktail horse was not worth very much unless they could show it had a spring in its step and its tail was held high. So unscrupulous horse breeders would take a little piece of ginger, fully peeled, and insert it somewhere which only you can imagine. And now this would cause the poor horse's tail to go high, to prance up and down, probably in quite considerable pain. But that was a cocktail horse. So apparently William Pitt the Younger was a bit of an arrogant gentleman, so-and-so. And so he would prance around a bit like a cocktail horse. What on earth has this got to do with gin and cocktails? Right, in 1869, the first British cocktail book was published. And in there was something called a ginger cocktail. And the ingredient was this slip of ginger, and they'd drawn the name cocktail from that horse and from William Pitt the Younger, and the ginger had gone full cycle. So that's the first time the word cocktail was used in relation to a drink.
And in the last 30 seconds or so, let's tell you the answer to why cocktails were invented. Andy?
Well, the reason is because early gin and early alcohol tasted foul. The original Tom Collins gins, Old Tom gins were bloody awful. Modern Old Tom gins are very good, but the old ones were absolutely awful and cut with all sorts of chemicals and nasties and so on. So people would add interesting things to make it taste better, hence the invention of cocktails. And the Tom Collins is an original cocktail from that era.
We have had a fantastic time with you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know more about Skywave Gin, do visit our website. We've got lots of different gins and new ones coming out in the future. We've got 2 or 3 coming out this year, so do keep an eye out on that.
And drop us an email as well. There's a contact form on there, or you can email us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know what you think of our gin. We love to be in touch with people who enjoy it.
But in the meantime, have a fantastic night tonight. We're going to say a special hi to Apothecary Gin got a little link with them. We're working with them at the moment. But right now, have a great time with Nelson's, and I'll hand you right over to Manchester Distillery. Take care, guys. Have a lovely evening. Bye from
Bye.
Oxfordshire and Skywave Gin.
Bye.